name is Joyce, and I'll be sharing my Life of Pi photo essay about the power of the mind. My theme for this essay is on fear. My inquiry question is, how does fear change our perception and influence our behaviors in the world around us? My thesis statement is, fear fundamentally alters our mental perception, influencing how we interpret and think about the world around us through thoughts, interactions, and how we live with fear every day. Fear is one of the most primal and universal emotions. It plays a significant role in shaping our mental perception of the world. It operates as a lens through which we interpret our surroundings, influencing our emotions and thoughts. The concept of living with fear in our everyday lives and affecting our interactions. By examining the impact of fear mentally, we better understand its profound influence on human consciousness and behaviors. I separated my points into three categories. My first point is thoughts versus fears, and my second point is interaction versus fears, and then my last one is everyday life versus fear. My first point is thoughts versus fears. How does fear affect our thoughts? My first photo is titled Distortion of the Mind, which portrays how fear pollutes our thoughts and how it distorts our minds. In semi-formal, I was taking this photo because of the lighting and the atmosphere of where the photo was taken. Originally, I had a vision of how this photo would look, but the results didn't turn out how I expected to be. Instead, it turned out to be distorted, a distorted image, just like how fear affects our thoughts. It creates us to have experiences, it creates us to have expectations and expected reality, but in reality, when facing our fears, it's a distorted view of what we expect. Furthermore, the title Into the Unknown represents my long time fear since childhood, which is staring into the darkness, not knowing what is out there. This fear stems up from when I saw a horror movie about monsters being under my bed and just how and just like in dark places, not knowing what the darkness has or what's on the other side. Side story, when I was younger, I was always scared of my guest room at our house in the basement because it was always filled with darkness and I didn't know what would appear there. So imagination and stories were made up in my mind, which led me to be defeated by fear. Continuing on to my next photo, this photo is titled as The Lion's Eye because I was minding my own business and I saw a car in front of me. The backlights of the car looked like the eyes of a lion dancing costume. The symbolism of the lion is considered a symbol of power, courage, and protection in Chinese culture. The purpose behind lion dance is warding off evil spirits and bad luck and bringing luck and prosperity. No one wants to have bad luck and evil spirits haunting them. So that's why it drives away fear. In the life of Pi, fear is shown throughout the movie. Many times throughout the movie, we can see how fear affects Pi's thoughts. Pi first feared Richard Parker immensely because, of course, he's a terrifying carnivore animal that would prey on anything with meat, which is Pi, which led to Pi having thoughts and constructing a plan to flee the breaches of Richard Parker. In the face of fear, Pi's mind conjures up elaborate fantasies and illustrations to cope with the harshness of his circumstances. For example, when the tiger looked into the water, Pi followed along and saw elaborate illustrations of his mother fishes that live deep under the sea that you can't really see on the surface, and different animals. This is a coping mechanism for Pi, who faces hardships in the ocean along with a ferocious tiger. On to my second point, which is interactions and versus fear. In this photo, we can see there's two photos. One is colored and the other is in a monochrome filter. I purposely put these photos side by side because I wanted to highlight the idea of how encountering a fearful experience can enhance memory recollection, making negative or traumatic experiences or events more vivid and easier to recall. When we see these photos, we assume that the colored photo would be about positive experience, while the black and white photo is the negative. However, for conceptual purposes, I made this to be more of like the colored photo is more memorable and vivid compared to the monochrome photo. This photo is titled Dark Woods, which is quite self-explanatory based on the name of why this photo is related to fear. While bringing back to my previous point in thoughts versus fears about darkness, where I talked about my childhood fear and how I resolved it as I grew older, I felt less fearful to things. This photo demonstrates the fear that I had going into the woods because it was dark. However, because of my friends, I had the courage, trust, and support to go into the woods, the spooky woods, which I don't know what was in store for us. Additionally, I added a quote by Franklin D. Roosevelt. I said it before, but now I can't say it for some reason. And he said, "The only thing we had to fear is fear itself." This quote inspired me to face my fears head on. The idea of fear is something that my mind is making up to stop me from reaching my goals. This photo is titled Portabella, which is my dog's name. For this photo, I wanted to showcase the importance of companionship of a furry animal, and which is my pet, as well as showcasing how interacting with them brings comfort, companionship, company, connections, and reassurance, as well as warmth, which ease my worries about my fears of being in the dark and being alone. How does this relate to the life of Pi? In the life of Pi, the interaction that Pi has with Richard Parker starts to grow. As we can see in the first point, he kind of, in like the beginning of the movie, when he got stranded, he was kind of fearful and hesitant of approaching to Richard Parker because he's a ferocious animal, of course. But for this point, Pi is starting to face his fears of being eaten by Richard Parker, and instead is taming the tiger to be able to reach his goals, which is for him surviving and kind of like living in harmony together and coexisting together. My third point is, in our everyday lives, fear becomes a constant companion, influencing how we navigate routine tasks and making decisions, whether it's fear of failure, rejection, or physical harm. These anxieties shape our behaviors and choices on our daily basis. Distractions. A big part of how we cope with fear. This photo was taken in Taiwan. It's a photo of a circular rainbow. The purpose of this photo was to showcase the emotions behind taking the photo. When I was taking the photo, it was a bright day and it was warm. The location was unexpected. It felt unreal because I have never seen a full rainbow or anything like shaped like that, which momentarily distracted me from being attacked by bugs, which I'm afraid of bugs, which demonstrated a moment of being distracted from the sense of fear. Another coping mechanism for people to use is being in their comfortable spots or places that they feel comfortable in. For me, when I get scared, I get cold, so I would hide under my blankets because I felt comfortable and warm and safe in there. So that's why this photo is about being in a comfortable spot and having a place to be in. It's also the reason why I titled this photo to be Cozy Beds, because I wanted to showcase how it was a comfortable spot for me personally, and I'm pretty sure that other people have their own comfortable spots. Routines. I chose this photo because I thought of how everyday life, going home and going to school, all those routines, that's how I have fear behind how I'm thinking, behind my mind. But it's not entirely centered of fear. It's because of how I have these other routines that I have to accomplish every day. So, as we navigate through our daily routines, we get accustomed to the thought of reaching a goal. Engaging in tasks and responsibilities keeps our mind occupied, leaving less room for any thoughts of fear. Completing daily tasks creates a sense of accomplishment and control. In The Life of Pi, near the end of the movie, Pi found comfort in Richard Parker's presence rather than fear. For example, when the storm of God came in, Pi was concerned for Richard Parker's safety rather than fearing his own safety, because as the storm kind of calmed down, Richard Parker looked weakened, so he was more concerned about his well-being rather than the fear that he faced when he was feeling at the beginning of when they had the shipwreck. Additionally, when Pi landed on the island where he was rescued, the sadness of when Richard Parker had left is proof of his comfort and familiarity with him. This connects to my third point, which is in our everyday lives, fear becomes a constant companion, which in this case, Pi's companion was Richard Parker, and as they were together for many, many days stranded on a boat and a raft, they were there together and there through their lives throughout those days that they were stranded. Finally, as we wrap up to our conclusion, we are connected to each other around the world. Fear might come in many shapes and forms, but we all might have the same fears, which we all have distractions to live our daily lives with, which we also have things to cope with for our daily lives, and we have social interactions that support us emotionally to lessen that fear, and our minds create illusions that also decreases the idea of what we fear. In conclusion, fear fundamentally alters our mental perception, influencing how we interpret and think about the world around us in profound ways. From the emotional trauma it provokes to distort thoughts in process, fear infuses in every aspect of our lives, shaping our interactions with others and our daily behaviors. By recognizing the influence of fear and developing strategies to cope with its effects, we can navigate the complexity of our internal and external worlds with greater resilience and understanding, which allows us to make the most out of life. Thank you for listening.